Hello, my name is Annalie Carruthers, and I am the organizer of the Toyin Falola interviews. Welcome. In this series, Dr. Falola, globally renowned scholar and professor, will interview scholars and policymakers whose work and research are particularly relevant for the African continent and its peoples, including the diaspora. Dr. Falola will also discuss the scholars' most recent books with them. The ultimate goal in this series is to promote the work of great minds and to spread knowledge to the general public about current intellectual projects that these great minds are pursuing. Research themes can include, but are not limited to, the following: African affairs, African migration, religion, culture, intellectual history, development issues, theories, women's rights, disability rights, post-colonial society in Africa and other parts of the global South, and globalization. These discussions will be recorded over Zoom, and these recordings will be distributed on the Toyin Falola Network Facebook page, Twitter, and website. Thank you very much for joining us, and we hope that you enjoy.
Let me now move to our third professor, Kunal Ryan, who is joining us from the University of West Indies, Mona. She teaches and coordinates the film studies program in that university, and his research explores the relationship between Nigerian screen media and Lagos, the city of Lagos. This is a challenging moment to do a movie on Lagos because the entire place is now in chaos. And his work has appeared in Research in African Literature, the Journal of African Cinema, Kaladu African Studies Review. And until you publish in Yoruba Studies Review, your work is not done. Thank you so much. It's up to you now to ask your questions.
Thank you, Toyin. TK, so good to see you. So good to see you. And even though you say you're not a fine boy, you're looking fine, and that makes me very happy to know that you're keeping healthy and safe in these times.
Thank you. Don't forget makeup for special effects.
Well, the conversation we were just having provides a really wonderful segue to the kinds of questions I wanted to ask. You mentioned that in your upcoming project, Ayinla, you will have some difficulty in casting because you're not sure how you can find actors of the right age who could perform the proper body language and the proper, linguistically, how to capture Ayinla's figure from 40 years ago. My question is really about how relationships behind the camera organize the films that we come to see that appear on the screen. I'm just curious about kind of how some of those relationships have changed over time in, I'm not going to say Nollywood, I'll say, media production in Nigeria. Maybe you'll see why a little later on that'll become clear. But, you've been involved in making television, celluloid film, video films, adaptations, every kind of screen media that's available. You've been involved in production. But something else that I find really fascinating about your work, TK, and also about your studio, Mainframe, was the kind of the constellation, almost the galaxy of other creative talents that you had circling around you. And I remember when I visited you at the offices in Oshodi, many times, but the first time I wasn't sure if I would get through to meet with you. And, you opened the door and you welcomed me in. And I remember over the years of visiting your office when I was living in Lagos, you had a college student, a Unilag student who would come to try to, speak with you about your work. And I know that Eric Schmidt, of Google, he stopped by the Mainframe studios as well. So Mainframe, I always was amazed how it was a place where all of these creatives, all of these different individuals crossed paths, and you were somehow at the center of these different connections that were happening. But I guess my first question was about your own getting linked into production. I know you apprenticed in photography as a young man, and then from apprenticing in photography, you became a cameraman at WNTV in Ibadan. You did your schooling at the London School of Film and Television. Came back, but you didn't remain simply a cameraman at NTA. You became involved with shooting films with the Yoruba Traveling Theatre. And I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about how it was that before Nollywood, theater professionals, the technicians, the directors, all the different people it requires to make a film, how did people connect? Was there a place where people met? Was there a link that brought people together? Exactly how did these relationships form?
Well, thank you. I'd like to first of all mention Anila, the film we're going to make. And I want to assure you that we're going to have a fantastic cast. But I'm just a bit apprehensive because we haven't really started to meet together, but I'm sure that we will be able to present Nigerians, Africa, and perhaps the rest of the world another experience altogether, because again, we have an unusual mix of old and young generation, and then we are prepared to learn from each other and share this unique experience. So I'm excited, that we're up to something really big, different. It's going to be perhaps another milestone in the quest for the development of African cinema. And that, again, is part of something you have described, because I was lucky to be around when the Yoruba Traveling Theatre was thriving. And then I saw the transformation and how they went from medium to medium. And it's exciting how these people, they can adapt so quickly to changes, to technology, to anything. They are very versatile, And so today, when I look at the Nigerian film industry, I'm always excited by the sheer diversity, and these are people who really went from the theater tradition and then they've gone into another medium, almost seamlessly. And the interesting part of it is that along the way, they have managed to preserve some of the uniqueness of how they started and so on. So you could see from the films they made. And it is interesting that they, have developed a grammar, a film structure entirely of their own, and it's very interesting to me because if you went through a formal film education and you see how they have managed to appropriate this technology and done away with things that could have, perhaps set you back or anything like that. No, they just went completely, followed their own work and took advantage of the technology, and they have become experts, various level of expertise at what they are doing. So there was a time I made a point of duty to be supplied 20 films, 20 Yoruba films that came out. Anything that came out of that, I have some people who supply me and give me, these are the example of the best of these 20, and I watch them, and I try to sort of keep some kind of data, who was doing what and who is doing that. So the process is very exciting. It is a film in that level has been reduced to perhaps a cultural event. In those days, if you are making a film, everybody, whether you cast them or not, they follow you. They don't bother you. They keep, they sleep where they can, they eat what they find. But the interesting part of it is that they were part of it. Only the other day, I was trying to talk to some of the theater, the traveling theater that participated in all the first films that were made. And I was talking to one of them, Olofino, and I asked him if he ever took part in any of the films. And he said, no, yes. You know, that they reported on location as usual and so on. And so what part did you play? And he said, no, you know, Yeba Togunde had bought a whole aircraft engine. You know, anytime we wanted to create storm, you know, and so on. So he got the engineers, aviation expert to come and start this engine, and then we use it for. So Olofana told me that the housing, it was vibrating. So Gunde assigned them and say, from now on, you sit. Two of you sit on top of this engine so that you can stop the vibration. And that was the part they played in the film. They were never in the film. But they were happy to have been doing something that was considered important. And look, it is part of this continuity, you know, of all these elements coming together. That's why I have managed to devise my own style, if I have any, you know, because I'm moving from different experiences, and until sometimes I get to the production floor and I see what we have and so on, then something unique will come out of that experience. I think the thing is to keep an open door policy. And that is why, you know, from the British tradition that I knew, everybody on the film set is on first name basis. So I'm not addressed as Mr. Director or Mr. Producer or Mr. anything. I'm just TK, you know. So, and I learned, you know, working in that kind of team environment. I eat what the crew eat, I sleep where the crew sleep, you know, and so on. So I cannot be treated differently, you know. So, and I sort of know everybody, you know, and as soon as we start casting, instantly, you know these people who can, you know, play certain parts, you know. So, you know, so I think it's part of a process which I've done for several years. And, you know, in fact, I'm blessed in a sense, you know, because I'm surrounded by all this, you know, this army of talented, extremely talented people.
Let me follow up on that question regarding career success and career change. Two of the things I love to do in the 50s and 60s, playing soccer and performance drama, you hardly will get any mother or father that will encourage you to do them. I doubt if there is anybody of my generation whose parents did not spank for playing soccer, coming home late. Fast forward, everybody now wants to play soccer. And fast forward, we now have a generation of highly successful African performers. In fact, they have these celebratory videos that you can now watch, ovation-like. Whenever any of them does a birthday, a marriage, they spend a lot of money. And most recently, I watched one of the women actors opening a mansion in Lekki VI, taking us room by room. In fact, she took us to one room just full of her shoes and perfume. So first, can you speak to that transformation over time and what is happening now in terms of what they used to criticize in the past? Nobody now does that anymore. The age of commercial, all these Nollywood actors now acting commercial to sell Maggie, telephone, you see them on billboards, and they've actually become superstar. Whether they are exaggerating that or not, I don't know. Because one time, about 7 of them visited me in Austin and said, look, Professor, what can you do to inject money into this industry? So sometimes I see the contradiction in terms of what they display on television and private conversation.
Well, I said that I'm really excited. What I'm excited about the Nigerian industry is it's diversity, and freedom of expression. And I think that the audience too, can be given credit for making Nollywood popular, because there's room for everyone. There's, all sorts of why people prefer to watch what they're watching, and we have to give the Nigerian audience for supporting that industry despite the flaws. They know there are flaws in them. Sometimes, some of them are, so passionate about it, and so on. And again, this has happened as a lot of factors, because I consider myself really techie in a sense, but there are certain we could not catch up, we could not predict, the technology, the way that the technology has advanced so rapidly that it caught all of us off guard. When we started, how it was to make a film, nobody can, just once or two or three people or so can afford to do that. And the technology of it, it was a process of exclusion. You could not control the means of production. And then that started to happen gradually, now overnight. In fact, none of us predicted that with YouTube, 1 billion people visit YouTube every day. And that is why even today, there's all sorts of, TV, Yaleron TV, online TV, Taylor online TV. Everybody is opening TV, on YouTube, and the technology too. Suddenly everybody was liberated. Everybody, if you had anything to do, just that you have the tools by which you can tell these stories. It's so dizzying, and we didn't know. 1 year ago, we didn't know that there would be Zoom, for instance. And then, even at my age, I'm learning webcasting. I'm, finding that you could, from your laptop, almost present and host a TV program. Everything, your laptop has turned to be a broadcasting studio and things like that. So, I don't know what to expect. People have made, the industry has made superstars, as we know. And then we could almost now find where are you? Either are you lucky or you are Ibadan based or, not based and things like that. So we are witnessing an interesting time. And what's so interesting about it is, there's everybody is welcome. Everybody is doing it. Now there's emphasis on entrepreneurship, and I started to teach. Sometimes I teach young people. Now I found out that before, people were just passionate about what they were doing. The performers of that time really didn't know that it could be this business, and so on. So everybody is planning. It's interesting that I'm now telling young people that really, to be free, you have to make money at making film. You have to consider these things again. You really cannot make money by making film. You have to be involved in selling the films. And it's important that filmmakers should make money so they can attain some creative freedom, and things like that. These are new lessons in life, and the thing is to find a balance, between the two. Because if everybody rushes that, suddenly Netflix is here, HBO, others are going to come in, and they're beginning to dictate the kind of stories that are made and the way that the films are made, the new technical standards and things like that. If it's about entrepreneurship or about money, then you can expect that people will move away from certain kind of films and go for the formulas and the templates. you know. So, but in all this, there are others who may be able to balance, you know, the new game, you know, and then why they think about the responsibilities that is imbued on African filmmakers. That is, they make meaningful films, films that will entertain and at the same time perhaps touch on the aspect of social and economic development of the people.
Yeah. So TK, if I can jump in, you're really touching on something that's very interesting to me right now, which is the way those relationships behind the camera, let's say the culture behind the camera has changed as some of these developments have come about, such as, you know, Netflix or Iroko or Ibaka or, you know, so on and so forth. You say you tell your film students, you know, that they need to be mindful of the business end of filmmaking. They have to sell it. Once upon a time, you knew who you were selling your film to. You had a marketer. There were marketers. I remember visiting one office of a streaming platform in Ikeja. I thought I could set up an appointment maybe for an interview, and I came through the front door, and I was met with surprise because no one comes to the office, no one comes through the front door. And when I asked for an interview to talk about the business of distribution in Nollywood today, I was referred to the publicity team in New York City in the United States. I should go talk to them, right? So I'm wondering how, like, has anything changed in terms of like the culture or the relationships behind the camera that you could put your finger on? Now that we have all these different kinds of actors and stakeholders involved in the industry, has something changed?
Things will keep changing all the time. You know, like I told you,
Yeah.
when you refer to, you know, for me, I took a decision and at my own risk because I thought that it was important that I made those films that I made at that time. And I was naive. You know, I didn't have any business experience. I thought that the marketers were doing us a favor. They were doing us a favor. You know, I thought they were taking a lot of responsibility off me. You know, they know the market, they set the market, you know, and it was too late when I found out they were actually building houses. And no, and the filmmakers is suffering all the time because they didn't even invest anything except at the point of distribution at the price they decided. We did some negotiation, you know, and all that. So I would think differently, you know, now. But at that time, I thought I was too stupid. You know, I didn't bother to think. I was just concerned. As soon as I got enough money, I simply went to the next film, and then I went to the next film. You know, perhaps in hindsight, all I can say is that all I got out of it is that I have a body of work. You know, probably from Toluwanibe, starting from the new technology, you know, to Dazzling Mirage. You know, a work that will always be there. You know, although they've been pirated, you know, pillaged and everything like that, but at least, and I tell you, it's been a hell of a challenge because we were copying from technology to technology, you know, just to remain, you know, to have access to these films, you know, and you saw what has happened to the earlier Nigerian film. We lost all of them. You know, it's unlikely that we'll ever see an Ogunde film again. Some of those other films, because we lost them to foreign laboratories, you know, and we closed down the laboratories and all the archives. So, but at least, you know, it's interesting that a lot of people are working. There's going to be huge demand in content. The creative industry is going to be huge. You know, I can see that myself. You know, so perhaps the challenge to the filmmakers is you just have to stay on top of your game. You have to continue to update your knowledge, your everything, be interested in technology. Luckily now, they're lucky you have YouTube. There's nothing you cannot find on YouTube to start with. How do I do that? How do I do this? How do I do that? So I think the young people, the problem I see is that sooner or later, perhaps they're going to realize the importance of their own language and culture. They're going to discover the importance of their literature. They're going to find the importance of their history, rather than start to create these stories out of vacuum, people who are not hooked to anything, but they are granted to sell, as long as you can, play the game. You have to have sex, violence, bad language, explosions, visual effects, but how about the story? How about the people? Who are these people? Where are they from? They didn't drop from the sky. Perhaps it doesn't matter anymore, maybe it doesn't matter where you come from. Maybe it's no longer important, things like that, as we are witnessing. So, like I said, that one of the things I love more about is the diversity, and it's freedom, relative freedom of expression.
So, Tunde Adegbola, you want to ask a question? Please, sir, go ahead. Tunde Adegbola, can you please unmute him, Obina? Hello? Obina?
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, TK. There's something about you that I've noticed and I've had the privilege of writing about, and that is your sense of your visual capacity. I have this idea that there's something about the way you see the world, which is probably a little different from the way some of us see the world. I noted in a piece recently that you are a septuagenarian, avid reader who had never worn a pair of glasses in his life, and not because you've undergone any operation, just natural vision. And I'm intrigued by the fact that you joined the WNTV, WNBC many years ago, and you worked as a cameraman. But naturally, the people you gravitated towards were the fine artists of the Oshogbo tradition, the Jimo Braimo, Muraino Yelami, Twin 77. These visual artists, what is it about you and the visual art?
Well, I just followed my passion. It was just at a time I followed, the traveling theater. I just fell in love with them and tried as much as possible. And I'm happy later in life that we got working together. Those people that had worshipped, I thought they were not human beings. And then later we got down together and we worked successfully together. And perhaps that has enriched my professional life. And then at a time, I found the Oshogbo artists, and I started to travel, 277, Jimo Braimo, Murano Yelami, all those people, Rufus Ogundipe, and all of them. And I followed them to exhibitions in Lagos because I found that we were all drawing from our cultural experience or cultural experiences, So and then I followed the musicians as well, So there was quite a lot of things happening, and everything was important to me in my development. It was very interesting because when finally I got into London Film School and I was going to graduate from London Film School, and we had a consultant, Bill Oxley, and one morning Bill called me and said, "Sit down, Tunde," and he told me and said, "There's nothing more we can teach you in this space, but truly, if you want to be a great filmmaker or a cinematographer at that, and I just advise you go to the National Art Gallery and watch a painting a day." Well, yes, I took that advice and went to Trafalgar Square and started to look at the painting. And then suddenly everything came together, and I found that, wow, I decided to see, my eyes were open that people had done this. Canvas, their colors in front of them, perhaps blocked in one room, and come up with this wonderful work that is sold for millions of dollars. And here we are struggling to make 25 pictures in 1 second times 60 minutes times 60, 1 hour, 100 people getting together to make this thing, and at the end of the day, we probably won't sell as much as one painting. Then there's something new. Then I saw everything. I saw the light. I saw the colors. I saw movement. I saw everything in this painting. So what I do is as I wander around, I can see all of these things, and I'm filing them away. So finally, when we're going to make a film and I go through the narrative and see this thing, I begin to, suggestions of location come to me quite naturally, because chances that I have experienced this place before, I have been in the community. I have, I was asked if I wanted to stay back or relocate to England at a particular point. And I said, it's not possible. I don't think so, because, all those places they don't have what I have. They don't have, I'm close to Sahara, I'm close to Savannah, forests, hills, valleys, lagoon, ocean. Where else could you be? And the wonderful people, all over these places. So I have so much, that I could just pick and choose anything I wanted to do at any time, or I have the canvas and what is a question of what I want to paint on this, So, and I've tried, but I really haven't done more. I wish I could have done more than I'm doing at the moment. So my source of inspiration comes from everything in my environment, in my community. That is, I know I can see, and we have vast literary resource. We can never exhaust what we have. We haven't even started, and that's part of the point, because filmmakers these days, all these young people, I don't think they are reading. I don't think they are reading at all, and they are not looking back, of course. So there's a lot. I grew up at a time with the technology. We started from. You can't imagine. I don't know how we made those things we made with all those resources and so on, and definitely without the mobile phone. I don't know how we brought everybody together. I don't know how we contacted each other and scheduled this work without a mobile phone, So this is all quite interesting, and I just hope that we will take advantage of this technology. We can use it to advantage, Once we get going, nothing can stop Africa from developing, because we have everything, every tool we have around us.
Okay, can you please ask your last question?
Oh, I feel like I can relinquish my time to my senior colleague.
Okay.
I feel fully satisfied. It's good to talk to you, TK.
Well, we are very grateful, and we appreciate your contribution to this conversation.
Baba yetu yetu liye funjina la koweli